Hello everyone. So our group's project topic is trade reallocation after US-China trade war, and these are our group members. And this is our project repository link, and if you are interested, you can click this one. And our data, all the data sets are in the data file, and our notebooks are in the notebook file, and the RC data file contains all our functions. The background of our topic is Donald Trump's first term, and there was the US-China trade war. So from this plot, you can see that before the US-China trade war, the tariff are quite low. They were below 10%, but after 2018, we can see that the US imposed over 25% tariff on goods from China, and China imposes over 20% tariff on goods from US. Under this background, we want to investigate how did the increased tariff during the US-China trade war reshape China's export. Specifically, we want to show the impact on physical trade flow as well as the impact on economic complexity of other countries such as Vietnam, India, and Mexico. So we first construct the trade flow dataset and tariff datasets, and we do visualization, and we show the general changes in China's export structure and US import behavior. And we do two groups of regressions. One is about the trade flow and another is about the economic complexity index. There are two main findings. The first is that we can see after the US-China trade war, we can see China's export reallocate to other countries. And also, this tariff increase benefits some other countries because their economic complexity increase, which indicate some kind of knowledge diffusion and spillover effect of technology spillover effect. So for the data, there are basically we use trade flow data from UN countries. We get the free API from UN country website, and we construct our own function, which is faster and more flexible than the Python package called Country API call. And the tariff data are at 6-digit HS code level provided by PAL. And we get the tariff increase during the US-China trade war from 2018 to 2020. And we aggregate, so we define the country set. In addition to China and the USA, we are also interested in the impact on Japan, Vietnam, Korea, Mexico, India, and we group other countries to the rest of the world. And we investigate 11 sectors such as textile, metal products. And we aggregate the trade flow and the tariffs from 6-digit HS code to sectors using the HS ISIC concordance table.
Here comes to the visualization part, and this part is done by me, Yu Hui, and by my team member Zhou Jiaqi. And this graph shows that China's export value grow rate around 2018, while the total volume remained large. Year-on-year percentage growth dropped notably. And this graph shows that China's overall export change and the share for US faced a decrease after 2018. And following the drop from China, like the alternative countries' export face a big growth after the trade war between China and America. For example, like US textile imports from Vietnam face an increase after 2018. And also, China's imports from U.S. also decreased after the trade war. As the graph shows, the metal products face a big declination, and also followed by the food and beverages, and also the transport equipment. And now my teammate will introduce the other graphs.
So the next few slides illustrate the trends in China's export from 2010 to 2023, focusing on China's export volumes to its representative trading partners. I selected several representative sectors, including key manufacturer categories. And as we know that electrical and machinery, along with other manufactured goods, are among China's main exports to the U.S. In the textile sector, the yellow vertical line marks the year 2018, which coincides with the start of the US-China trade war. We observe a significant decline in China's textile export to the US in 2018. The following slides show a similar trend in electrical and the machinery sector, a sharp drop in the exports to US after 2018. And interestingly, exports to other countries show a significant increase during the same period. This suggests not only the negative impact of tariff on China's export to the US, but also the possibility of export allocation or spillover to other markets. And same trends for these markets. And next, we look at the network graph, which visualizes the bilateral export volumes among the 6 countries from 2016 to 2019. In this graph, the color of each line represents a standard deviation of the trade volume. We see a notable shift in the color, like from between 2017 and 2018, especially in the trade line between China and the US, which changes from purple to light blue. Indicating a significant drop. Similar changes are visible in China's trade relation with other countries as well. We've seen the visual patterns. Next comes the empirical evidence from our regression analysis.
And here's our regression results. So we run two regressions, one with the logged export volume being the Y variable, and the other regression uses the economic complexity index as the Y variable. So for the export volume regression, we have YIT being China's export. So this is actually logged to importer or country I in year T. And the X variables are the sector tariff imposed by US on China in certain years, as well as the sector importing tariff imposed by the importer I in a certain year. And we also include the logged real GDP of China, as well as the importing partners in the regression as well. So coming to the results, so essentially we see negative impact of importing tariff on China's export value, which is evidenced by the negative coefficient on the sector tariff variable. We also see positive impact of economic performance of an importer on the import value, which is evidenced by this positive coefficient on the log GDP importer in the third specification, which is the full specification that includes all the variables as well as the year and country fixed effect. And perhaps most importantly, we do see some degree of reallocation, which is evidenced by the positive coefficient. It's highly statistically significant as well on the US tariff on China variable. And essentially, this is telling that the rise of US tariff against China raises China's export to other countries. And the magnitude of this coefficient is not small. So essentially, this tells that 1% increase in US tariff on China raises China's export to other countries on average by 3%. And I will leave the floor to my group member who's gonna talk about the ECI regression.
Okay, so our second regression is using the economic complexity index as the dependent variable here. And for the independent variables, we have the tariff imposed by US on China and also the importer's tariff. And we have the logs exporting volume and the GDP. So in the results, we have more fixed effects here. And also we have more variables in the second and third columns and in the final column. This is the full specification regression. And the variables are very significant. And most importantly is that the U.S. tariff on China will increase the complexity of the importers. If the U.S. tariff increases by 1%, the complexity of importers will increase by the 0.02 units. And for the total tariff is like if the importer imposes more tariff on China, their trade will be affected and their complexity will decrease. And for the China's GDP, we can see its negative impact. And for their own GDP, we can see a positive relationship. And the index, the economic complexity index, measures the productive knowledge embedded in a country's economy. And for the final column, we can see negative impact of importing tariff and positive impact of the GDP. And the growth of China's economy seems to somewhat surprise the impact. And what is interesting is that the U.S. tariff on China increased the economic complexity of the reallocated importers. So this can be the evidence to define against dumping accusation of China. And finally, we do the first difference regression. We run the regression of change in log exports and change in the index on change in U.S. tariff on China, importer tariff change, and lag GDP and export volumes. So the results are basically like this. And for first column, the Y variable is the first difference of the export. And we can see for the change in U.S. tariff on China, this is also positive coefficient, and it is basically the same as the results before. And for the significant variable is the log GDP of importer last period can affect the export this period negatively. And for the second volume, we have the first difference of the economic complexity index as the Y variable. And for this X variable, for the change in total tariff, we can see the negative results. And also for the GDP importer, we have negative impact. And for exporter, it's negative. So basically, the final results are in line with the previous results. So this is basically what we have for our presentation. That's all. Thank you.